And we're back. Back once again for our somewhat regular Hobby Hang stream. Icarus, Captain Poseidon, welcome to the stream. Icarus says, I'm here on time for once. Wow. Well, feels the same over here. I was able to set up everything on time. And wouldn't you know, I got a fresh palette paper. We have set ourselves up for success, guys. What could go wrong? Pollux, how's it going? Thanks for tuning in on this Friday evening stream. The plan, guys, isn't to go on too long today. Should stay within the 2-hour window. That's the hope. That's the goal. As for what we're working on, we have a basic cultist with Autogun. Look at him in all of his glory. He's got a nostril tube, like in Dune. And no Pokeball grenade, though, so big sad. Big sad. Okay, so we're going to begin the brush on primer step. It's a little bit of a haphazard process, but you know what? It saves time, so that's a win. That's a win. So tell me guys, what is on your hobby desks? You know what, on Fridays I sort of usually do a community post asking what's on everyone's hobby desk, but sort of forgot. Maybe I'll do that after the stream. Uh-oh. Someone's got a loose head there. We'll see if that's a problem. We will see. Captain Poseidon says, currently working on a deadline. I will get my Zangors done by the end of the year. 6 left. Nice, a unit of Zangors, huh? I feel like the Goatmen of Tzeentch could use a bit more support. Because, like, what do you have? You have guys on foot with bolt guns and bolt pistols and chain swords, right? And then you have guys on disc with either blades or bows, and that's it. Oh, and a shaman, right? I don't hate the shaman as a unit. It's pretty cool. Feels a bit more unnerving to see a half bird, half goat man zipping around on a disc of sorcery than a Rubric Marine. Than an Astardi, in my opinion. Just don't know what to make of it. It's so weird. Which I think is evoking the right sort of feeling for a Tzeentch. A Tzeentch marked entity. So hopefully that dries fairly quickly. The primer seems to be pretty fast acting. It will need 2 coats. And then we'll start in on the gray cloth, which I'm pretty sure I should be using London gray. Last time I started with dark sea gray and it was a bit too bright. Captain Poseidon says, while they are technically an AOS unit, they belong to the Disciples of Tzeentch. The T-Suns can just use some AOS units for some reason. Yeah, that does feel a bit lackluster, a little less special for what you're supposed to be. A special god-marked legion, separate from the regular Chaos Space Marines, right? How come... So the Mutalith Vortex Beast is also a AOS unit, so that's kind of functioning in a similar capacity to the Zangors in that regard. I guess GW didn't want to give the World Eaters the slaughter fiend or whatever it's called. The slaughter vortex beast. Pollock says, usually nothing on my desk at this time of day, since it's somewhere around 11 p.m. or later when you start. I just stick to watching, chatting, and cuddling my cats. Well, Pollux, that is rather wholesome. And I appreciate that you chose my stream to keep you company in your evening hours. Such an honor. Captain Poseidon says, I actually like it. We can just get into AOS whenever. But it's also thematic. Yeah, I don't dislike the range overlap. I kind of wish there was more range overlap for the applicable units. Like some of the demon units, perhaps? Only some of those demon units can cross the realm to 40k, to cross the dimensional gap. You know, I just feel like demons are inherently, like the whole idea is they are entities from another plane of reality, right? So who cares if the backstory of some particular AOS demon doesn't work? Or vice versa, right? I mean, maybe a little bit of mystery and mystique adds something to the demonic entities, you know? Maybe we can begin priming some of our other guys while the primer on this particular cultist dries. Can at least do something. Pollux G says, time works differently in the warp. AOS and 40k might as well happen at the same time. Exactly. It essentially allows you to do whatever you want. Right, there's so many 40k stories, or even just sci-fi stories, where you deal with weird time physics shenanigans, where the laws as we understand them, the laws of our reality, don't really hold, right? think those, like, is it so bad? Like, when I made my video, my reactionary, not at all filled with personal feelings video around Dexessa and Sinessa not being included in 40k. A lot of the pushback comments I got were that the lore is so specific to Age of Sigmar that it wouldn't really translate. And a lot of the comments were like, would you really want, you know, demons like Demon Angron should be in 40k, or sorry, Demon Angron should be in AOS rather. And I feel like, well, like, why not? If his soul is claimed by Khorne, and now he must go and serve the great game, I feel like, yeah, why not? He is a demon from another plane of reality, whose backstory doesn't really have any origin in this particular reality. But that's kind of par for the course for demons, right? I mean, Be'lakor gets an exception. Now, for the basing scheme of these cultists, I've been thinking, I haven't exactly settled, but I've been thinking of adapting the Gengar basing scheme, but through an industrial lens, right? So like a dark metal, mostly not metallic paints, just blacks and grays. Maybe save metal color for the rivets and particular details here and there on the bases. But instead of green bushes, I think these vent areas, maybe fill those with a bit of white ink, a bit of Hexwraith flame contrast, and then you get a kind of similar base to the Hive Fleet, but industrial rather than organic. It's kind of like it's poetry, so like they rhyme, if you know what I mean. Okay, this guy looks mostly ready for another coat. And then I will take a look at chat, I swear. I'm not intentionally trying to ignore you guys. Captain Poseidon says, in the Armen Omnibus, there are those Tzeentch followers which will do anything to work alongside Armen, because Armen is, quote, the prophet of change. Oh, Armen's definitely a big cheese, a big deal. You know what I mean? The big cheese. He's like Mephiston in that regard. Maybe his feats are even more OP. I think they are both on that tier of super OP psychers, where they both stop the hearts of pilots and airplanes. That should be like the label of a tier in a tier list for psychic potency. Able to stop hearts of pilots and airplanes. And then you slot those characters into that tier. Just want to check something real quick on the interwebs. See if something is ready, because it may be cool. Not quite. Did not turn out as I thought. That's fine. That is fine. Disregard, chat, disregard. Captain Poseidon says, did you watch the Secret Levels episode? It was fun to paint Zangors after seeing hundreds of them get slaughtered. But now I wish I had given my Zangors glowing blue blood. Yes, I watched the Secret Level animation. I thought it was, or episode, feels a little rude just to call it an animation. Yeah, it's an episode, you know. It's not story heavy. All the storytelling is sort of environmental or indirect, you could say. A lot like Astartes in that regard. And it has a lot of... I believe the Astartes guy worked on it. That's what I've been told. Could be fake news. I don't know for certain. You guys fact check that if you want. But in any case, yeah, the Secret Level animation had some excellent directorial choices. A lot of shots that were rather artful, which I appreciated. And then, you know, the general badassery of seeing the Spec Marines do their thing. It's always a kind of treat when you get to see them sort of accurately depicted, right? Just bodying mortals, right? Like they're not an issue to deal with at all. And then against something like a demon, it's a different story. And yeah, the glowing blue blood for Zangors, again, speaks to what I was saying earlier about the very strong art direction of the episode. Yeah, now I guess it's canon. All Zangors have glowing blue blood. For Zinch, of course. Pollux G says, it would be a fun story if the gods send him to the AOS world for some reason. I guess you're referring to some of the demon Primarchs? I mean, look, if the whole point is you're slave to the whims of these gods, right? And we know these gods are more preoccupied about their great game. I think it's a fun wink and a nod that whatever game system you're not playing is the great game. For the Chaos Gods, right? They're always preoccupied elsewhere. Captain Poseidon says, I really hate the new T-Sun's detachment. It's a bit more thematic than the Cult of Magic detachment, but still not that much. Weird that GW got such a thematic army rule for the Thousand Suns messed up twice. Interesting. If you're willing to expand, Captain Poseidon, I wouldn't mind hearing exactly what you would like to see changed. I do agree that I like it more than the Cult of Magic. I think it's the Index detachment, anyways. I think it is a more thematic way to abstract those themes, and the mechanics are stronger, or the mechanics do a better job at abstracting the theme that both detachments are trying to exemplify. Captain Poseidon says, I play Zinch and he doesn't give a fuck as long as we make memes and screw people over for no reason. That sounds on brand, that's for sure. I think it's mostly dry enough, okay? We're gonna get in there. Get in there with some London Grey. So this guy does not have gloves, so I have to keep that in mind when it's time to paint the skin. He does have a sash, though, which is... Oh, and leg wraps. Oh, shoot. I don't want the... The sash is going to be purple. Purple for Gengar. Purple for Gengar. There's a nice accent color in between his his pants. The gray cloth color of the pants. I think it'll stand out nicely. Now for a regular neophyte hybrid, this guy's got a bit more accessories than usual. Aside from the round Pokemon style grenade, that is missing, but you know, he's got knee pads, he's got these shin wraps. One of the cooler looking neophytes, I think. I'm not a huge fan of the ones who wear coats. But the variety does lend to the cult aesthetic, that's for sure. I think it's the right choice. Friendly Neighborhood Inquisitor, welcome to the stream. Our friendly Neighborhood Inquisitor says, hey there, what the 40k, how goes it today? It's going well, friendly Neighborhood Inquisitor. I didn't take a look at the detachments yet. I skimmed the Eldar one. From what I gather, it's vehicle based. I saw the detachment rule is affecting vehicles, but beyond that, kind of curious to see what else. It's not something that I'm particularly, enthused by, but I think Eldar vehicle fans might be intrigued by it. How many of these detachments do you feel are just the leftovers, the Codex leftovers that we're being treated to? The ones that didn't quite make the cut. Like a detachment, like a Space Marine detachment for Psychers. It's like, I don't know. A little suspicious. Pollux G says, does anyone have recommendations for a kit to start with as a base to build Primaris Vanguard veterans? I recommend Jump Pack Intercessors as Captain Poseidon. I will undercut and build upon Captain Poseidon's recommendation. I recommend normal Intercessors with third-party jump packs or 3D printed jump packs. Because it's like the similar price point to standard Intercessors, but you have 5 less bodies. You just don't get poses where guys are kind of in motion. I mean, you could use Assault Intercessors, though. Just use Assault Intercessors. Actually, that's what you should be using. You use standard Assault Intercessors, third-party jump packs, because then your war gear is close. You don't have special weapons the way Vanguard veterans would. You'll have chain swords. You could say they're master crafted. Or have some fun swapping out weapons from the bits box or going third party or whatever else. Okay, we'll start it on the skin. We'll have to remember his, maybe I'll start with the hands. I don't suppose anyone knows offhand what this material around on the Autogun where his left hand is. Like, what is that? Is that like a rubber material to increase his gripular capacity? Or is that just a metal? Just a metal color, a metal material. I feel like it could be a rubberized, sort of grip-enhancing component of the rifle. I don't know. Rolls with Destiny dice, eh? Let's see here. Captain Poseidon says, I actually really like the Eldar army rule a lot. Destiny dice makes sense for Tzeentch. The way Fate dice works in 40k is essentially a knitting, which you can push and pull the strings on. I guess so. I don't know. It does not enthuse me. I don't think the Eldar's themes are best exemplified by Fate dice, by the strands of Fate. Personally, I think their most alien feature, their skill and their capacity and uncanny movements, are probably what you should be abstracting with the army rule as a characterizing mechanism. That is my opinion. But I can appreciate a little bit of Fate dice action, right? Like I think a Farseer just having that sort of capacity, you know, you bring a Farseer, and that's just something he can do. Roll a dice in your command phase, keep it aside, swap it out for something. I think that's very apt for the Farseer. And you know, maybe if crazy idea, okay guys, get ready for it. Maybe if your Farseer is having support from a conclave, a Warlock conclave, maybe you get more dice, right? Maybe specialist bodyguard units should offer utility rather than just mortal wounds if you're shooting at the leader with precision. Or sorry, mortal wound defense through a feel no pain if you're shooting at that leader with precision. It's almost like they're just wasting that design space. Like, that should be a big deal, right? A Farseer supported by a Warlock conclave? Like, that should give you pause for thought when you see that. You're like, whoa. That's gotta be super impactful. It's a collection of wizards up to no good. Captain Poseidon says, you can just kind of tug at one thing and a whole new future appears. They could have a rule where it's the inverse of the Eldar's rule and you can cast something on your opponent and later replace their dice. Interesting. Interesting. Like a curse. I fundamentally feel like dice swapping is just perfectly on theme for Tzeentch. And I think for Sisters of Battle and for Eldar, there are other ways to... There are other mechanics which better abstract their themes. Captain Poseidon says Tzeentch fits Fate dice better. The Elder should probably have a rule where, which makes it so that you can place a token on an enemy after attacking it with X unit, and later Y unit triggers an ability if you attack a unit with a token. These long planned attacks. Not terrible. Not terrible. I don't mind it. I don't mind that that's a kind of a combined cooperative sort of element. In most armies, I kind of like when units work together. Right? It's kind of boring if every unit is just efficient and works in isolation. It's nice when they interact with each other in a way that isn't just, you know, +1 to hit, ideally. Yeah, very curious to see what battle focus will be. I'm just hoping it's mechanically rich. It doesn't have to be good, just not boring. Okay, we'll get a little bit of dark secret. We'll go back and forth between our cloth and our skin materials, sections of the model, and go through those processes. But for the cloth, it's not too crazy. We're just going with a slightly lighter tone to enhance his to appreciate a little bit, really. Pollux says Mega Man X music. Yeah. You can hear how Mega Man X it is. I would have assumed, if you didn't say it, that it was Mega Man X. Captain Poseidon says, let's be honest, you don't play 40k because you enjoy the rules so much. You play because you like imagining your army men, or in my case, evil wizards from hell fighting. I mean, I agree in part, but what makes it enjoyable is when the rules are thematic, right? When you have a rule and you say like, wow, that is fairly creative and it's right on point with, like, it comes down to feel. You could use that word, right? A lot of people will describe it that way. Oh, this rule just feels right. Orcs calling a Wa and advancing and charging feels right. So I do think it, in that regard, I do weight it quite a bit. Sort of the inspiration point, or I guess the impetus of the channel's origin, right? I was just like baffled by rules choices. Let's try to make some interesting shapes on these pockets. Yeah, I can appreciate a satisfying army rule, that's for sure. And in turn, I can certainly hate particular rules choices. So what's going on with these pants? So the sash comes across, all the way across to his other leg, and I guess we're going to paint this like it's pants, even though it's a bit of a modeling deformation, it seems, or a molding deformation. Not a critique, I think probably a limitation of the process. Well, that leg is mostly covered, so we probably don't have to paint, put too much attention on it. For the cultists with super big weapons, you know, the heavy mining laser, seismic cannon, I think I've glued them together, but only slightly, so I should be able to pop those arms off. So I'm going to give them a proper paint job for the more elite members of the unit. Captain Poseidon says, yeah, which is why I'm starting to get into AOS. Yeah, I think, like I said, I've said it before, I don't know if it's because it could be the grass is always greener effect, but I look at Age of Sigmar very, very optimistically. I think it's an easier beast to manage. I would imagine the lack of ranged combat allows less of an easier play experience to kind of facilitate, right? You don't have to worry about units getting nuked before you get to play them. Usually, from what I understand, most combat, most attack sequence interactions rather are in melee combat. Whereas in 40k, it's pretty even split, or you could say maybe leans more like maybe 60-40, depending on the army, right? More shooty than fighty. And because of that, I think you probably just get to have a more even back and forth without having to worry about if we don't play with L-shaped ruins using these terrain templates, someone's going to have a bad time. Right? You're going to put your model down and I'm just going to obliterate it off the table before you get to play. I would imagine Age of Sigmar doesn't have that challenge to account for. But, maybe someone in chat could enlighten me if otherwise. Yeah, so for the skin, this is our brighter color. I'm going to shake this a bit more. Captain Poseidon says, look at the rules for various factions. Khorne's blessings actually come from blood flow. Slaanesh offering temptation in the form of 66.6% chance to land on 6s or suffer D3 mortal wounds. Great. Yes, I quite like the design philosophy. It seems, again, just looking from the outside, Age of Sigmar seems a bit more creative in its design space, let's say. Is that fair? Is that a fair claim to make? Alright, so this guy's looking pretty pale. Maybe too pale. We'll see what happens. Maybe we can marry these two colors a bit better. I'll try and keep that brighter color in his mouth so it looks like he's giving a real grimace. This guy's pissed. Absolutely pissed off. That's looking a bit nicer now. Took a bit of effort. Well, he's gonna have his ridges, right? Wonder if I've applied too many coats and lost the detail there. Could be the case. Maybe a wash will resurrect them. We'll see. Okay, so we'll get our darker skin color. Don't need too much of this. Just enough of this purple stuff. And we'll just put it, you know, in the darker areas. But again, it's so harsh. We'll have to blend it back. And I wasn't thinking this would be a good eye color, but you know what? Let's just go with it. Let's just see what happens. Well, this side's definitely better than the other side. Let's fix that. Pollux G says, with the 40k, do you get any feedback on your thematic lists for playability? I'm considering using one as a base for a new thing. Feedback on my thematic list for playability? You mean competitively? Rarely. It seems, and it's time sensitive, right? Because points change and the list isn't really playable often. Right, the Imperial Fist one had quite a lot of good feedback for playability. The Raven Guard ones usually do. People, report back having, enjoyed fielding the list. The Crimson Fist one had some good feedback as well from 10th edition. What new thing did you have in mind there, Pollux? Sounds like you have some big ideas. Darken that tube. Pollux says, I threw the Raven Guard into a list builder. It has 60 points left now, so I could use it as is and throw in an extra Apothecary or Ancient. Nice. Yeah, Raven Guard are so cool. And they have a pretty, hard, you can lean pretty hard into their themes. Like, the army range supports them fairly well, which could, result in a fairly different army if you've built something more in the middle, right? Amongst any other Marine collections you may have. I guess the nice part about painting these faces is that it's okay if they're ugly. So yet, when you're painting Eldar faces, there's too much pressure. Too much pressure to make them purdy. Pollux says, I asked because I have little experience with more shooty Marines. Playing Blood Angels usually means chainsword go burr. Oh, more than fair. More than fair. I like the idea of the Raven Guard building a list that isn't as total obliteration when it comes to range combat, right? A list that leans into subterfuge and playing the mission rather than just obliterating the enemy, right? I think the game and like I said, the army range kind of supports that better than most chapters. Yeah, because they kind of lean hard into the subterfuge, right? Like you could say, yeah, the army range can support Iron Hands because there's lots of tanks and lots of high toughness. Marines are tough to kill, and Iron Hands, it's right on theme for standard intercessors or heavy intercessors, but all I mean to say is the Raven Guard are a bit more skewed in a good way. Skewed towards flexibility. Disproportionately compared to other chapters. I'll put some lines on his hands, and then I think we'll sort of leave the skin there, let the wash carry the hands. Probably the smart move. Now, I'd like to do his eyes, but maybe it's better to wash first. See how the skin is sitting. So, what did I say the eye recipe was? Or sorry, the skin wash recipe. I think it was Lamian medium, Reichland, and a bit of purple. A bit of that Druki violet. Give me some of that Druki violet. Pollock says the biggest problem with that list is buying suppressors. Yeah, you can't buy suppressors unless you buy the combat patrol, correct? I feel like suppressors might just end up going to Legends. It was a weird experiment, adding yet another variant of Mark 10 power armor. Omnis pattern, right? I think it's called. Okay, we're gonna have to suck up some of that wash. It's a bit too heavy. A bit too heavy in certain places. We got top of the head. We don't want it sitting up there. Okay, so look, the wash is adding a bit of warmth to the skin, but not too much. I think it's actually making things look better. Surprise, surprise. Washes do what washes do. Pollock says it's a double-edged sword. The box they come in has a lot of the units I would want anyway, but it's also a big purchase. Well, if it's units you would be otherwise getting, it's probably cheaper in the combat patrol, in all honesty. It would probably save you some, it's cheaper in GW dollars. Put it that way. For whatever that's worth. Okay, let's take a look at these ruels. These ruels. Take a little bit of a break. Give that wash some time to chill. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna just switch my tabs here. There we go. Oh no, my scene needs to stretch a bit. There we go. Oh, almost. Now it's professional. Okay, so this is Eldar first, Armored Warhost. When unleashed upon the battlefield in number, the vehicles of the Eldar can bring a terrifying volume of firepower to bear with exceptional speed. Yep, that's pretty much the gist of the theme, I figured. Skilled crews, ranged weapons equipped by Eldari vehicles. Eldari vehicle models from your army have the assault ability and can reroll advanced rolls made for Eldari fly vehicles, which is going to be most of your vehicles, barring like War Walkers. Yeah, advance is cool. Reroll advance is useful when you have assault, obviously. Let's see the enhancements. Eldari Psyker model only until the start of your shooting phase. Oh, sorry, at the start of your shooting phase, select one friendly Eldari vehicle model within 9 inches of the bearer. So it's a declarable perk from a infantry model. 9 inches is a pretty large distance away. Until the end of the phase, each time the model makes an attack, add 1 to the hit roll. So kind of like the buff of the Tech Marine for 25 points. Right, give a vehicle a +1 to hit. Give a Fire Prism +1 to hit. A Night Spinner. It's pretty good. Harmonization Matrix, Eldari model only. In your command phase, if the bearer or any transport it is embarked within is within range of an objective marker you control, roll 1d6. On a 3+, you gain 1 CP. Don't love rolling, but CP regeneration is a premium price point, and it seems like they're all going that way anyways, barring the ones that are fixed on your data sheet. All the CP generating enhancements anyways. 3-up is better than most though, for what it's worth, and you can use it while inside of a transport, which is logical, but also on theme with this detachment. Flight of Icarus says, oh wow, it's Yamilok. It's a Yamilok, if I'm pronouncing that right. Detachment. Yes, it seems that way. Good craft world pull there, Icarus. The next enhancement is Spirit Stone of Raylith. Now, for a Psyker model only, while the bearer is within 3 inches of one or more friendly Eldari vehicle units, the bearer has a lone operative ability. In your command phase, you can select one friendly Eldari vehicle model within 3 inches of the bearer, and that model regains up to D3 lost wounds. So, for 20 points, you can turn a Psyker into a Bone Singer, basically. Yeah, as a flavor text. You know. You might as well use your Bone Singer model. Just so stupid. Just, I don't know. It's it's like why even put it in Legends? Whatever. Guileful Strategist for 15 points. Eldari model only. If your army includes the bearer, oh, you just have to include them. After both players have deployed their units, select up to 3 vehicle units from your army, and you can redeploy them When doing so, any of those units can be placed into strat reserves, regardless of how many units are in strat reserves. Awesome. Good way to start off on the right footing. You know, do some bait and switches with the deployment. Right, useful for fire prisms since they can kind of bounce off and shoot off each other. It's fine. It's just, you know, I'm not super enthused about it because I'm not into Eldar for the vehicles necessarily. I like them, but anyways, layered wards, an any phase stratagem for 1 CP. Just after a mortal wound is taken to, or suffered by a vehicle, you can give that vehicle a 5+ feel no pain against mortal wounds until the end of the phase. Yeah, we've seen the stratagem since like 8th edition. You'd always have your vehicle mortal wound resisting stratagem, right? In your arsenal of like 30+ stratagems. Icarus says, I've always kind of liked Yimilok's paint scheme. If I were to do Eldar, it would probably be Yimilok. Swift deployment is 1 CP in your movement phase, 1 transport unit. Until the end of your phase, units can disembark from your transport after it has advanced. Units that do so count as having made a normal move but cannot declare a charge. Okay, so you have a impulsor type utility from your transports for 1 CP. Well, Eldar transports, I think, if memory serves, move 14 with fly. Then you have assault, so you can advance and then still shoot and then disembark and disembark using this and grab an objective or just shoot. It's pretty cool. Vectored engines, also a movement phase stratagem. Just in your movement phase, after an Eldar vehicle unit from your army that can fly falls back, that unit is eligible to shoot in a turn in which it fell back. It's good quality of life, good get out of jail free card. Can't just tag an Eldar tank to tie it up. I mean, you can always shoot out of combat in most cases anyways, but you'd suffer a -1 to hit, so, you know, you're not in that -1 to hit jail. Cloud Strike, that's a classic stratagem. 1 CP at the start of the reinforcement step of your movement phase. 1 Eldar vehicle unit from your army that can fly and is in strategic reserves is the target. Until the end of the phase, your unit has the deep strike ability. Oh. And it can be set anywhere in the battlefield that is more than 6 inches horizontally away from all enemy units. But if it does until the end of the turn, it is not eligible to declare a charge. In addition, if your unit is a transport, each unit that disembarks from that unit this turn must be set up more than 6 inches horizontally away from all enemy units. And until the end of the turn, it is not eligible to declare a charge. Those are fair restrictions for a pretty useful exception. Soul Sight for 1 CP in your shooting phase. Until the end of the phase, each time your unit is selected to shoot, you can reroll 1 hit, 1 wound, and 1 damage roll made for a model in your unit. If you're using fast dice rolling, you can select one of those rolls to reroll before moving on to the next step of the attack sequence. Well, how about that? Look, they accounted for how people play the game in their rules. That's nice to see. That's encouraging. Yeah, full Master Artisan rerolls on a Eldar vehicle is pretty. It's a good quality of life. That's like it turns any vehicle into like a gladiator Lancer, basically. which is why the Gladiator Lancer is so good. Anti-grav repulsion, that's your reactive stratagem. It's an Eldar vehicle unit that can fly. You subtract 2 from charge rolls when enemies charge. Pretty simple. Useful, I suppose, right? You know, it could deny people. You'll only use it when it's useful, so it's not bad. Yeah, it's neat. You know, I don't... It doesn't particularly excite my sensibilities for Eldar, but I think if you're a vehicle enjoyer, this is probably very rewarding to see. Let's quickly take a look at the Reaper's Wagger detachment here for Dark Eldar. The theme here is the Reaper's Wagger. Wagger. The Reaper's Wager is among the most macabre sadists, depicting a gruesome tale of murder spets between merciless killers and mythic executioners. It is a well-known tale that is greatly enjoyed in the depths of the Dark City. Oh, it's based off of a story. Interesting. When the Harlequin and Drukhari go to war as one, Khamarite warriors often perform an accompanying role in its retelling. Bladed Drukhari transports emerge from the webway alongside scintillating Harlequin skimmers, emblazoned with dazzling adornments. Oh, so it's a Drukhari Harlequin combo detachment. And they're competing with each other. Funny. At the start of the battle, Drukhari units... This is the detachment rule. At the start of the battle, Drukhari units from your army are winning the wager. Each time a Drukhari unit from your army destroys an enemy unit, Drukhari units from your army are winning the wager. Each time a Harlequin's unit from your army destroys an enemy unit, Harlequin units are winning the wager. While Drukhari units from your army are winning the wager, Harlequin units from your army are losing the wager, and vice versa. Each time a Drukhari or Harlequin's model from your army makes an attack, if that model's unit is losing the wager, reroll a hit roll and reroll a wound roll of 1. Very interesting. And then you have a little bit of structural rules here to specify how many points of Harlequins you can have. So you have half your army be Harlequins at the standard points level, the 2k points level. Can't be your warlord though, which is fair. Interesting. I did not expect this, and I think it's pretty creative. I don't hate this direction, this rules writing philosophy. It is allies. It's not internal. Like, you could have had this with witches and Cavalite warriors too, right? You could have, or between the different cabals, cults, and covens in the Dark Eldar. I don't see why you couldn't have a three-way wagger. Three-way wager, but I mean, a three-way is certainly on brand for the Dark Eldar. Anyways, let's look at the enhancements. Arch Raider, 15 points, Harlequins or Drukhari. In the declare battle formation step, if the bearer starts the battle embarked within a transport, dedicated transport, within a dedicated transport, that transport has the Scout's 9 ability. Okay. Free Scout. Free Scout move. Well, not free, 15 points. But, you know, Scout's obviously good. Gives you board control, and, I mean, it could put you within arm's reach of the enemy, but that's on you to make that calculus. Sometimes you want to be more aggressive. Sometimes not. Webway Walker, 15 points. Again, Harlequins or Drukhari. Models in the bearer's unit have the Deep Strike ability. Each time the bearer's unit is set up on the battlefield using the Deep Strike ability, if that unit is currently losing the... Excuse me, if that unit is losing the wager, until the end of the turn, you can reroll charge rolls. Yeah, nice to see these enhancements are interacting with the detachment mechanism. Gaining deep strike. I just, you know what, I'm not familiar enough with the range to know, like, what the winners of a deep strike are. That, you know, I imagine those units would be units that can shoot, that lack mobility, right? Like, units that can function like obliterators but don't have the teleport deep strike ability. Reaper's Cowl for 25 points. Harlequins only. Models and bears unit gain stealth and infiltrators. Cool. You know, make them more sneaky. Forward deploy with -1 to hit. Harlequins were already more difficult than you would expect for an elf to take out, so stealth, built-in stealth doesn't hurt. And Conductor of Torment for 20 points, a Drukhari only enhancement. In your command phase, you can do one of the following. If your Drukhari units are currently losing the wager, you can gain 1 pain token. That is cool. I like that. Got some layered system interaction. If you do, Drukhari units from your army are now winning the wager. Oh, this is key. See, this should be front and center. There should be designer's commentary that instructs, like, this is a pillar. This is a pillar for you to manipulate your system. If your Drukhari units are currently winning the wager, you can discard 1 pain token. If you do, yeah, your Harlequin units are now winning the wager. So this gives you a bit of control in your command phase, depending on how you want to kick off for maximum potency. Yeah, this should be right at the top. I don't know why it's at the bottom. It's stupid. But very cool rule. Malicious Frenzy. On to stratagems. We're starting with Malicious Frenzy. Shooting or fight phase for Drukhari or Harlequin units. And you can select lethal hits or sustained hits. Good. Yeah. You know, what are you lacking? You need to punch up or you just want more volume? Do you have dev wounds? You know, whatever you need in whatever phase of the standard attack sequence, Malicious Frenzy will set you up. And because you have reroll hit rolls and wound rolls of 1, depending how you're manipulating your wager, that layers it nicely here. Fateful Roll. 1 CP in the fight phase. Just after an enemy unit has selected its attacks, you can choose a Drukhari, a Dark Eldar, or a Harlequin unit. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit is destroyed, if that model has not fought this phase, roll 1d6, adding 1 to the result if it's losing the wager. Okay, interesting twist on the condition. I mean, that's what you would do, though, in this detachment. The wager is the key mechanic. And anyways, on a 4+, you remove it from, do not remove it from play. It can fight after the attacking unit has finished making its attack. So you get a fight on death, which could be, I mean, it could be very impactful, right? Naturally. I mean, Harlequins and Dark Eldar often fight well. Harlequins especially. We have Murderer's Circus, 1 CP in the fight phase, just after an enemy unit has selected targets to attack. For Dark Eldar or Harlequins, you get a -1 to hit. You could have... Oh, it's -1 to hit. Yeah, so Murderer's Circus gives you a -1 to hit in melee, which is fine. Movement phase, shorten the odds, 1 CP. You use it after a Dark Eldar or Harlequin unit has advanced. Until the end of the turn, your unit is eligible to shoot and declare a charge in a turn in which it advanced. Hey, do you need to do a thing? Well, then this is the stratagem for you. Whatever you need to push for your wager. It's interesting. Scintillating tempo. Movement or charge phase. Drukari or Harlequin units that have made a normal advance or fall back move is set up on the battlefield or declares a charge. Until the end of the turn, enemy units cannot use the Fire Overwatch stratagem. Wowee! That's a nice quality of life. Alright, that is pretty good. And then we have Dance Macabre. For 2 CP. So a big, expensive reactive stratagem in the enemy's movement phase. Just after an enemy unit ends a normal advance or fall back. A Dark Eldar or Harlequin infantry unit within 9 inches of that unit can make a normal move up to d6, and if your unit is currently losing the wager, it can make a normal move of up to 6 instead. Very interesting. Now, okay, I like this actually a lot. It's super creative, not something we're used to seeing. And the wager only works when you are destroying units, right? Not when your units are destroyed. I don't know. This is compelling to me. It gives you a system that's pretty unique. It gives you a lot of room to play. I don't know how. I can't speak to its potency, if it's worth the squeeze, right? But it has some clear. It has a distinct requirement to play with potent stratagems, I think. Right, denying Overwatch, advance and charge, fighting on death, and a flat 6-inch reactive move if you're losing the wager. I really like it, and it has an obvious weakness, right? Because if you just focus down all of the Dark Eldar or all the Harlequins, then they can't leverage the wager properly anymore. Right? As soon as you get rid of all of one, then it's like, well, you can't. Because your army rule is conditioned on losing the wager. So if you only have Dark Eldar units left, well, you're always winning. Yeah. Interesting. I like this a lot. That's cool. Very cool detachment for the Dark Eldar. Alrighty, let us switch back to our hobby view. Icarus says wager. I'm aware, Icarus. I'm aware. I just love to pronounce words horribly. In ways that make them sound lame. The guilty pleasure, I suppose. Okay, now that our wash is dry, we'll get some grace here for his eye holes. And we'll get some reds for the pupils. I want a bit more paint. And let's see if we can do these eyes without too much fuss. Yeah, I don't hate that. It's not terrible. also be doing the metal colors a bit later. Icarus says, this is a great concept, but I just don't see a lot of Dark Eldar players going out and buying half of their army and Harlequins for it. This is true. This is true, Icarus. So if GW really wanted to do that, they would really make the rules super busted. Really encouraged that behavior, but yeah, I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze, especially if there's like an obvious kind of weakness. Now, it's easier said than done, right, to get rid of all the Dark Eldar units, so the Harlequins can't bounce back the wager benefit, but if you're fighting someone very versatile, right, if you're fighting an army that has like a lot of movement and they can reliably put down units, I could imagine, turn 3, you're going second, all your Dark Eldar units have been specifically targeted and destroyed, right? But maybe doing that would be to the detriment of the mission. Right, maybe that comes down to the Dark Eldar player in this case too. You put the units out there that you're okay losing. It's like, oh, I want to put out an even distribution of units. I'm putting, you're not going to use only your Harlequins to sit on objectives, for example, right? You go back and forth. Look at this guy. He's pissed. It's like, you come into my mining colony? So yeah, I just bump up some of the brighter colors at the wash. Kind of wore down. And I think this flesh color is actually probably decent for teeth. Probably don't want more definition than that. And maybe this purple color down here is a good lip color, but he might look like lipstick, which might not be the vibe I want. Icarus says, either make it busted or make it permanent, like something they're committed to supporting. And therein, Icarus, therein lies the main issue with Warhammer 40k rules management. You never know. You never know. One of my buddies, who's been on these streams before, Melon, he bought into GSC because he loved the deployment blips. He loved being able to kind of get in people's heads with an army that wasn't especially powerful, but could be deceptive and tricksy, right? And he also loved having crossfire as a means to set up meaningful positions in movement and get a reward for that. And all of those were kind of stripped from the GSC in 10th edition. And it was a, yeah, it sucks, you know? Well, like, and it sucks. And, you know, me being me, I told him, hey man, if you want to play, if you want to incorporate those mechanics into 10th edition, I'm cool with, you know, homebrewing it or, you know, rolling in the rules as they were written in 9th. Just layer them on. Like, I don't mind. I'm just down for whatever. But even if people accommodate it, depending on the person's, you know, personality, the individual's personality, they might not find it tasteful because that's just their lens, right? And therein is how GW punishes the hobby efforts of its customers. So let's paint his nose cable. He probably needs that to breathe, right? Now, I'm not exactly sure where it's going. It's down this way, I guess? Goes down into his suit. I feel like it looks terrible. Maybe because it's just painted black and it needs a highlight or something. Oh shoot, I painted his nose. Icarus says, this gentleman does indeed seem quite irritated. Some intruders interrupting his private time with his gene stealer waifu. Jesus. Yeah, probably. Yeah, he's just protecting his family, probably. Just wholesome gene stealer cultist over here. If I get a bit of gray, what happens to this cable? Oh, I feel like it looks bad no matter what I do. Maybe it's just a lost cause. Maybe just accept it and move on and paint something else. I'll add just a dot of pure red to give that eye a little bit more luster. Okay, I think it's happening. That's where we'll keep him. Okay, I think the face job is adequate. He's looking pretty good. Maybe we can darken his eyes a little bit more. Just line him up a little bit. We'll see. We'll see what we can do. Just underneath is what I'm aiming for. Misfit, welcome to the stream. Thanks for tuning in on this Friday evening. Icarus says, I feel like it looks bad no matter what I do. That generally seems to be the case with faces. If it's any consolation, I think it looks great. Well, thank you, Icarus. I'm quite pleased how it came together. When we first applied the brighter color, he was looking like a burn victim, but now I think he looks like a Gene Stealer cultist. Next, we'll just kind of messily apply some... We'll use up this black primer and just probably layer in some of this gray. Some of this London gray to get a brighter, kind of off black kind of color. And then from there, maybe the wash will carry. A non-oil wash will carry these boots. That might be too bright, though. We'll have to see. Misfit says, I dropped my Riptide this morning and it broke in several places. Sad face. Oh, Misfit. F's in chat for Misfit's Riptide. That sucks. Nothing else you can say. Terrible feeling. I wouldn't wish it upon my enemies. Drop in a model that I'm assuming is finished painted, you know? It's the worst. Finish painting a model and hopefully it's repairable, Misfit, for what it's worth. For what it's worth, hopefully it's repairable. But you know what, guys? Maybe the lighter gray is the trick. Maybe the lighter gray with black contrast? Okay, let's do an experiment on this guy. Maybe we can change our recipe going forward. What if we paint everything London gray and just use black contrast for these pads? Let's give it a... Well, I feel like we're about to unlock something. A major discovery. Painting will never be the same. We'll try it just on the knee pads. And then if we hate it, nothing lost, right? We can try on the boots too. Yeah, I'll just try it on all these black leather parts, let's say. Then we have 2 test models we can compare against. So that feels good. Because if it's close, I don't mind carrying this going forward. Misfit says, I took the opportunity to just break it into smaller parts to paint in sub-assemblies while I was painting, I was rubbing paint off. Lol. Oh. Yeah, big sad there, Misfit. Bummer. Icarus says, I realized my wash and cure station was broken for my 3D printer today. Ew. Though I still managed to get some Phobos Death Watch shoulder pants out the old-fashioned way. Flight of Icarus says, about to evolve from a haunter. Maybe. Maybe. Misfit says, also changing the accent color for my Tau to burgundy was such a good idea. Looks nice. Excellent, Misfit. Look, the experiment paid off. Well, not the damage to your Riptide. That's never worth it. Omegon's twin says, Mega Gengar, question mark? No, just a cultist. Just a humble, gene-stealing cultist. Living his best life. Protecting the family from, you know, outsiders. Protecting the family from the real wrongdoers. Okay, yeah, here we have some Black Legion. Generation 2 contrast, which seems to work better than the old stuff. In my experience, anyways. Icarus says, that reminds me, I'm still thinking over what color I'll paint the Tau armor and gun parts of my Vespids. Maybe a hot red, like the Farsight Enclaves. Well, Farsight Enclaves are definitely more... Not definitely. From what I can recall. I think the Farsight Enclaves are closer to a maroon. Right? Let me take a look. Maybe I'm just... Maybe I inceptioned myself at some point. Commander... Farsight. Yeah, it's not a Blood Angels kind of bright red. It's a bit darker, a little bit darker. Not as dark as I thought. I would say, Icarus, paint the armor, unless you're like, you have particular aims with your lore and association and all of that. I would pick the armor color that contrasts the bug parts best. Right? Everything in service of aesthetics. I wonder if that's why GW changed the color of Vespid to orange. Because that bright blue just wouldn't look as good with the white war gear and panels of the current Tau aesthetic, right? The Viorla kind of color scheme. That's the poster boy for the Tau. Whereas before, the Tau Sept, that ochre color, looked very good with the blue, the bright blue skin. That's probably exactly right. I think. I think I am 100% correct. Misfit says, I am nearly at the bottom of my Kraken rum. I hope you didn't pour any out for your Riptide. That'd be a waste. Yeah, Kraken rum is pretty cool. Pretty good stuff. And you get to feel like a pirate. That might be the best part. Okay, so I put this contrast on and I just basically made everything black. So, maybe London Grey isn't a good color to start with. Maybe we can do a bit of a brush over. Leave the contrast in the recesses and pull it off of the flat areas. Like, this is why we experiment on the Autogun cultists, right? And on their feet, because, you know, boots get damaged, they get weird. Misfit says my Vespid kill team are blue. That's dope. Flight of Icarus says, honestly, I think they made the Vespids orange because the Aquilons had black armor. Black and orange for my kill team. Maybe. But if the Vespid were bright blue with orange ochre tau armor, the classic colors for the Vespid, they would still contrast nicely against the Tempestus because they're so bright. Either way, orange or that old blue color. Misfit says, yar. Yes, the peak pirate vibe. Okay, so we're going to do another experiment with this contrast. We're going to step it up to the streets. Now we're going to step it up to the Dark Sea Gray instead of London Gray. And we'll try the contrast again. Omegon's twin says they look like Geonosians from Star Wars when they're orange. That's not wrong. That's funny. That's pretty good. Geonosians. Yeah, I feel like this ribbed armor, this like padded, seems to me like workers like pads. You know, you're in the mines. You're doing your heavy lifting, getting on your knees and stuff. You probably want these pads on your knees. Misfit says, with Vespid, I looked at insects for color ideas. Excellent choice. Yep. That's a good route for Tyranid color schemes as well. Icarus says, new Vespids look a lot more like bugs to me. The older ones looked almost reptilian. Yeah, I would agree with that. These ones definitely look more bug-like. The old ones were, I don't know, nondescript space alien. And the name Vespid implied bug-like associations. Oh my god, Twin says I thought the old ones were birds. I don't think they were birds. No, they had wings. That, I mean, not feathered wings, right? They had insect style wings. Misfit says, "What did you make of the Eldar detachments?" I thought the Drukhari and Harlequin one looked interesting. I thought the same. So the Eldar one to me is kind of, if you like vehicles, it's probably good for you. It's not particularly exciting for me. That's not what excites me about Eldar. But I have friends. I have a friend who likes Eldar vehicles, loves the grav tanks. Used to run all grav tanks in Ninth Edition, right? So I think there's an audience for the vehicle-oriented detachment for sure. The Harlequin and Dark Eldar one is probably my favorite detachment they've released so far, purely on a creativity point of view. This idea of the wager and different, like, it gives you something, a real unique system compared to most detachments we've seen. Like, how often do we find the zone type detachments? Control the objectives in at least half the objectives in no man's land, or half the objectives in the enemy deployment zone. It becomes your zone and your effects come into play. That's fairly common across many army types. Same with the doctrine template, right, for rules. Same with the all assault template, or the, like, so this Drukhari Harlequin one, in contrast to all of those, is far more unique, far more interesting, I think. So it gets novelty points for that, right? Because you're kind of introducing a kind of new, kind of fresh design, fresh game mechanic in that sense. But I also like that it has a hard strength and a hard weakness, right? A big fan of weakness in the game design, in the faction design. Like, build in some weaknesses. Because competitive players can't help but try and remove them. As per competitive list building. I'm feeling much more optimistic about these brighter knee pads. I think that contrast might actually be able to read now. Because, like, contrast wants Gray Seer or Wraithbone, right? So this is Wraithbone, and this is Dark Sea Gray. It's pretty close, right? A little bit darker. Misfit says the Eldar one looks like Guard for Eldar, lol. Yeah, a little bit. You know, sometimes you want to use your grab tanks and be swift. They have some things in there that I still feel like very Eldar-like. Like the Bone Singer is nice, but again, I read the enhancement to basically allow you to use your Bone Singer model, and then I roll my eyes because it's like, why is it even Legends then? It's like, what are we doing? All right. You're gonna say you can't use it, put it away, but then it's like, oh, but here you basically can use a Bone Singer. And I just feel like this is so lame. It's like it's so weird to me. It's like, imagine if, I don't know. It's like, I wonder if it's probably the right thing to do, all things considered, okay? I'm just pointing out how awkward it kind of is feeling to me, I guess. Yeah, because Legends is a beast you can't really... you have to contend with it. I think it's necessary in that sense, right? The stigma shouldn't be, but the fact that you can't create... Look, Games Workshop can barely support the inventory they try to support currently, right? For all their many game systems and spin-off games. So I think Legends is definitely necessary. And I guess if you're a rules writer and you know, like, oh, this detachment is like, gotta have a Bone Singer in here. That's classic Eldar. Of course, the Eldar would have a Bone Singer in this sort of detachment, right? Like, I can imagine the same in a Wraith-based detachment. And then if that's the case, well, I think the rules writer's doing the right thing. Okay, so here's the deal, guys. Here's the deal. I think this contrast is definitely better than when it was applied over the London gray. So we're getting some variance, but maybe Games Workshop was right. Maybe you gotta go with the gray sear for the designed performance, right? The intended result. Drats. Well, now we know. We did the experiment. Misfit says my neophytes are close to being cleared. Hey, well done, Misfit. Seems like you're crushing your backlog. Crushing the hobby to-do list. Oh, and look, we're coming up on the 2-hour mark now, guys. How about that? I feel like could go for a bit longer. We'll see. We'll see how. We'll make a judgment call once we're at the threshold. Well, I will say, for a bright color going over a black base coat, this isn't terrible. Icarus says contrast can go for white scar or matte white too. Interesting. What's matte white? Is that a army painter or AK or? I'm assuming it's another brand. Icarus says, honestly, question mark, with GW's record profits and expanding popularity, they really ought to bite the bullet and open more factories to better support their range. They're doing way too well to struggle this much supporting it. Yep. I don't disagree. The problem is, I think there's no incentive. It's not like their sales are hurting, and if only they could get the product that people want, they would be healthier for it. They've developed a model that's just produce just enough at the predetermined price point, and we will be profitable, and we'll just sell out. And all we have to do is continue to, serve. We have to be responsible to the shareholders, obviously, right? We have to be earning more each quarter, let's say, and then because of meeting those demands is the goal. We work backwards and set our prices and produce just enough accordingly, and look at that. It's perfect. And the scarcity also kind of, in a sense, gives the product its luxury status, right? right? The premium product status, right? They're not always available. It also creates like all that FOMO stuff, which is terrible, but that's a different point. Yeah, I don't disagree, Icarus. I'm thinking a different timeline where you could reliably buy any unit you wanted. It's like, oh, it's out of stock right now. Well, you know what? The factories are churning them out, so we'll have them in 1 week, 2 weeks. Not like who knows when, right? Email me when, because I don't know when this product could who knows, right? So I'm expecting over this Grace here, that black is going to look real good. I don't want to get into the front because kind of hard to reach. I'm just going to hit everything else. We'll just leave it primed black. Kind of looks okay as is. Good enough. We'll paint his gun fancy. We'll put like a purple Gengar stripe or something, like a real cool accenting bit of paint. I think that'll compensate. Edgar says this is very whimsical music to be painting a Gene Stealer Cultist too. Yep. Just all wholesome stuff over here. Nothing out of the ordinary. Ah, shit, look, I just realized I mix and matched like arms holding a gun with a little trinket, but then he has another trinket here. It's probably not ideal from a composition, from a individual model point of view, but it is what it is. And we've come too far at this point. Yeah, this is very whimsical music. Sounds like what? Banjo-Kazooie, probably? Something like that. Honestly, not terrible. Like, the contrast method is not my favorite, but for the speed, can't really go wrong. It's gonna go sit in the details there. I still plan to do a all-over dirty wash once all the materials are painted, so that should only further enhance the contrast, and I think it should get rid of the glossy layer that contrasts tend to have. Icarus says, I'm thinking I'm going to have to invest in speed paints and contrast to really pull off a Krieg army in a reasonable amount of time. Well, at least before I lose interest. Oh, I think that is definitely the way to go. Yeah. Incorporate like the Krieg aesthetic is, I feel like, reliant upon having that a bunch of men, a bunch of infantrymen, just like how GSC would be, right? All right, let us see where we're at. Well, guys, we've crossed the 2-hour threshold, and I think for a Friday evening, it's probably the right time to wrap her up. Not quite, well, maybe about halfway, right? Paint the armor, layer up some purples, paint the weapon, hit it with some Agrax Earthshade, some Dirty Wash. Maybe we'll be done this guy next stream. We'll see. We will see. Oh, he's probably all out of focus. Yeah, my bad. I was too preoccupied looking at my own model. Well, there he is. An angry man. Anyways, guys, if you made it to the end of the stream, you are the real hobby heroes. Thanks to everyone who shared in the hobby camaraderie, commented, liked, subscribed, all that good algorithm, channel interaction stuff. But with that,